Okay, all right, guys. Thanks for joining another episode here. Back by popular demand. Josh is back here with us. You got a fan out there in Oklahoma. You got a couple of fans out there.
Yeah, you told me that.
All right, so again, thanks for joining another episode. We got a good topic here tonight. And first, we're going to talk about what to expect at your first meeting, your first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, maybe your first Narcotics Anonymous meeting, any type of 12-step meeting, kind of what to expect that first time. And so I probably, with anybody's first time, it's got to be nerve-wracking. It's got to be scary. Going to an unfamiliar place, you probably don't know anybody there, and your family may or may not go with you. I know I just went by myself, and I was just glad to find the building. What's very strange about the meetings is that they're usually in an undescript building.
Yeah.
They may be in a church. They may meet in some community center. They may meet in the hospital. Like those public spaces. Maybe 20 chairs or
Rehab,
something.
psychiatric facilities.
Yeah,
all
any kind of
everywhere.
random meeting rooms. Like there's never an official AA building because it's just a bunch of group of volunteers trying to provide some recovery content and help for people. So they don't own a building. There's no Alcoholics Anonymous building in your town. But chances are there is probably a meeting space that they utilize.
Courthouse,
Hospitals. I mean, they're there. Now they're all on the web, so you can easily find them by going to aa.org or just googling support
the
groups
local
in your area.
AA central
You will
office.
find them. Yes, they are there. So I think if you're considering going to a 12-step meeting, I think that's fantastic. I think that's one of the best first things that you will do is Google where they're at. Just get in your head, this is where it is. Maybe drive by it without even going in. But you're headed in the right direction if you go to a support type meeting. And for me, I really didn't know what to expect the very first time. I went to one several years ago with a friend of mine who was getting a chip, his first 30 days chip or something like that. I remember going, and so I remember kind of the loose format was basically just a bunch of strangers not knowing who I was, shaking my hand, giving me a cup of coffee, they're pushing that coffee hard, and they were just happy. They were happy like people at church, and almost too happy, if I can complain about that, because I didn't want to stop drinking. And I knew I was there at a stop drinking meeting, and I was like, hey, you guys got the wrong guy. I'm just here to cheer on my buddy, and I'm going to be trashed in about 52 minutes. So don't invite me back, please. I'm just not here yet. But I remember they were super friendly. The coffee was unlimited coffee, unlimited good dark coffee, and it was just people that kind of just were glad you were there,
Yeah.
and they really deep down hoped you came back. And so that was my takeaway from my first. I was almost like a spy in my first AA meeting, and my real legitimate first AA meeting was very different. I came in there with a completely different attitude. I mean, I was given this had to work. This had to work. I don't know people that can afford the private pay rehab places, but
Eric C.
I had a whole different attitude when I came in, and I had what the curriculum calls a moment of clarity through hitting a rock bottom and desperation.
Yeah.
This had to work. Whatever you guys are going to do for the next 60 minutes, by God, it better work. And so it was strange. The meeting started off with meeting a gentleman who I consider my sponsor. He was just basically my first point of contact in that meeting. And he's from the business world. And so that gave me hope because a half portion of my life, I've been attached to some sort of business model. And I just kind of like that. I enjoy that. And so alcohol took a lot of that from me. And so when I seen this business casual guy, I was like, okay, there's more than just, we got all types of walks here. And so he was the first kind of businessy guy. And I was like, okay, good. This really can. It just kind of gave me hope that, hey, you've lost some things in your life business-wise, but if this guy can do well and get it all back, you can too.
Yeah.
So that was my first, what would you say? That was my first impression.
Yeah.
And it was a really good one. And of course, like with anybody AA there, they're super friendly. They're glad you're there. He made me feel welcome. He's like, pick a chair. And if you're like me, I like to pick chairs. I want to be towards the back, near the exit, near the parking lot, near the bathroom, or near the front, or near the, wherever it is, I kind of, it really matters. I'm weird like that where I sit. And so he's like, pick any chair you want. Just sit anywhere you want. I'm like, okay, cool. This is really cool. So far, very cool vibe. And then it was on a Sunday night, so there was only, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of us there. So it was a small group. I really, really like that. And then everybody just started sharing. And when I heard some people's stories, that's kind of how the magic started working for me. How about your first time? First meeting?
My very first meeting wouldn't have been in 2017. Man, my first meeting, technically, I was 17. I was part of NA then, and I couldn't really relate at the time because I had not had the full-on alcoholism yet. But the first meeting I went with, we'll go with the first meeting I went to when I was actually in active alcoholism. I was 21. I didn't make it to 22, and I was already an alcoholic.
Already a member.
Already a member. And I remember my first meeting, I went there, and it was my last meeting until 2017. I went in there, and, everybody was nice. It wasn't nothing like that. Everybody was welcoming and all that. And I just remember, they were passing it around, and they stopped on me, and everybody was looking at me. And I just went, I remember this was, first meeting. This would have been 2014, maybe? 2013. Actually, it may have been 2013. Let's see. I can't even remember the years. Hold on a second. Let's see. Yeah, 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And I remember going to this meeting, and they all stopped at me, and they were looking at me, and I remember I was just so angry. I was just like, what? So they kept on, they just passed me up, and I went, what?
Oh, they were going like in a round
for
people to introduce themselves or share?
I can't remember. All I remember is I was just like, what? And everybody's like, all right. And they went on. And I remember that day, that night, and it was at ODAT. I remember just getting up after the meeting ended, and I left, and then I managed to get to my townhome I had at the time, and I took my roommate's car, went down to the gas station, and I was sitting in the car drinking. I went back to the driveway, I was just sitting in the car drinking.
Yeah.
And I just remembered saying, I ain't like them. I'm not like them.
I don't got a problem.
I ain't got a problem. But the first meeting I went to where I actually wanted to get sober, that would have been 2017. And of course, I seen my good friend. Basically, he was more than a good friend. He was like a big brother to me, and I've known him since I was 17, since the NA days I was telling you about. And I seen him, and he's like, well, I remember your face. That's the way he was.
Right.
Love him to death. I miss him. And I remember just being like, yep, it's me. He's like, I already knew you. He said, I always knew you'd be back. I'm like, oh, I'm here. So my first meeting, I knew a face. And, I took up with people pretty quick. But, of course, everybody's experience is going to be different because, like you said, it's like a church, They congregate, they hang out, they laugh, but understand that they are also people. So you will, you might find somebody that you just don't vibe with. You might find that one person that you just don't get along. Anywhere you're in a group of people, there always may be the one. And you may not discover that till years in the program. It's everywhere. It's different from everybody's perspective. But, it also depends on the attitude you go in there with. That has a lot to do with it. If you go in there like getting up in people's faces, then you might not have a good, first. It might not be what you expected, But there's things that they have in order, and it's not to be mean. It is not to be hateful. Like sometimes it can come off sounding hateful. I'm sure you've heard it. The shut up and listen. It's for your own well-being. It's not that they're like, shut up, your voice ain't needing to be heard. It's not like that. It's because for me personally, when I went in those rooms, I had a problem with saying, I know. I didn't know a thing, or I wouldn't have been there. I never would have had to go there because I would have figured it out because I knew, right? It's off-putting when someone walks in there trying to sound like a guru.
Or that they don't need help.
Or like they don't need help. It's off-putting. They have good intention, and one thing that must be understood is none of us got into AA on a winning streak.
Yeah.
We got there because we were on a losing streak. And in the end, your first meeting will be what you make it. If you want it to be good, it'll be good. Because there's always something good that you will hear in a meeting, I don't think I've ever been to a meeting that I could not take something from it unless I didn't want to take something from it.
Yeah.
It's all about, what your mentality is when you're going in there. If you're going in there like, they ain't going to help me, this ain't going to help, then of course it isn't. Because you already set your mind on the path that you are going to stay on. you're not going to change the path until you realize, no, this is going to work because this is my last option.
Yeah.
When you have that mentality, it's a whole different ballpark. It doesn't. Honestly, what you can expect, ultimately, this is a laid out guarantee of what you can expect when you go to AA meeting, your first meeting. Usually they'll say, are there any newcomers who would like to introduce themselves?
Yeah.
They ain't going to force you to talk. They understand because we've all had that first meeting.
Yeah.
You know, some of us don't want to be on the spot. Some of us are not ready for you to even know our first name when we first come.
I like when I started hearing some people that were just there, and they were just there to listen.
Yeah.
And so they would say, I'm just here to listen, or I'm just here to support somebody, or my spouse is an alcoholic or a drug addict or something. All right, so you can probably imagine, let's say, like a small group discussion, maybe at your job or your job site or something like that. You maybe have 8, 9, 10, 12 people, depending on the day and time of the meeting. You may have upwards of maybe 15 or 20 people. And so they start off with reading some, what I call the curriculum, what some people call the program. And it's basically almost like here are these 12 bullet points that we believe to be true regarding alcohol, regarding recovery. And you got one person that kind of reads it. And then you got another almost like a disclosure of, this is what we're here to do. This is what we're not here to do. And so they read that every single meeting, and it almost kind of sets the tone and sets, a couple of ground rules for the thing. But one of the first steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or any type of addiction recovery program is that you got to admit that you're powerless over it and your life has become unmanageable. And it was when they read that one, and they've even got them on the walls, just like a charter, so you can really read it. And that's what clicked for me, and I was like, man, okay, well, step one, they nailed it on the head right here. My life this thing has just gotten completely out of control for the past several years, and I am unmanageable, so check.
Yeah.
I'm in the right place. And then people basically just share, this is what I'm dealing with, this is how I overcame it, or this was my story with alcohol, or this is my week battling, and I need some help, I need some encouragement, or a person's going to share their encouragement. And basically, in no form whatsoever, everybody just kind of takes a turn with it.
Yeah.
It's super encouraging.
Pardon my laughing. I was just thinking, I remember one buddy of mine, the one that passed away recently. I promise I'm not that crazy. I was just sitting here thinking of that and laughing because I do remember something I didn't recollect right away. My buddy, you know who I'm talking about. When he seen me come in that first meeting, I remember as I was going to leave, he goes, now, remember, we're still here. Don't forget. And I looked at him. I was like, I know.
His way of probably saying, please come back.
Yeah.
As soon as you can.
Yeah, and him being like an older brother to me, it was a little bit different how he talked to me. He's like, don't forget.
Yeah. That's one thing I love about the addiction community is you've got a lot of people that care about you, and you've got a lot of people that may not be from the church world, and their directedness and sometimes their language, it cuts right through any type of BS, if you will, or delusion, and they get right to the point with it. And for a lot of people, some of them may be rough around the edges, that's great. I think a lot of people, if you're struggling with some form of addiction, the last thing you probably need is probably somebody to sugarcoat it, give you another hug, give you another meme that's supposed to encourage you or something. You're probably past that point.
He was my sponsor when he passed away. When he passed away, I passed away. Yeah, edit that out. No. I'll say it again. He was my sponsor when he passed away, and I remember, I still to this day, and he passed away not that long ago, but like everything he's told me over the time frame that I've known him, it still resonates, even though he's passed on. And the crazy thing is I never could grasp the concept that I could stay sober no matter what the circumstance, no matter what happenstance is going on in my life. And one night, he was the 5th person to pass away that was close to me in the last 8 months. Mm. So it's been it's been hell and hot water the last 8 months for me. And one thing about it though is one night I was driving home, and this was just a couple days after he had passed. And I could almost hear his voice in my mind, saying, you just gotta not drink no matter what. And for me, that was powerful. I couldn't help but tear up, you know what I'm saying? Because here he is, and, you know, he's passed on, and here I am, you know, still remembering the things that he told me. And, you know, it was crazy for me because in that moment I was like, oh crap, I'm actually still sober. You know, it didn't even dawn on me. Like, alcohol ain't even a thought to me hardly anymore. I mean, I get the cravings here and there like everybody else, but it's nothing like it used to be. So what I'm getting at is, if you can get over, once you start attending, get past that first meeting, you will find people in there that you will, you know, connect with. And what I'm getting at by telling you the story of a close friend, basically my big brother, is you will bond with people in there, and you will find that even if they pass on before you, or you pass on before them, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember things you said. They're not going to let your memory die with you. And, you know, it's like a big family. We like to say our big dysfunctional family because, you know, we all have our own walks. You will not find hardly anybody in there that, you know, isn't different. You know, there is a wide diversity of you know, religion. There's a diversity in personality, career choice, religious choice.
That's the beauty of it.
You know, yeah, I mean, you know, and that is the beauty of it. It is a massive diversity in culture, practice, belief system, the whole 9 yards. And that in itself keeps it from being boring. Because, and the thing of it is, there's always new people coming in. It's always new people coming in. But you also won't hear me say, I've got this.
Right.
You know, and I still attend meetings, you know, from time to time. But don't, in my position, where I was before, is I can stay sober without the meetings. And at that time, I couldn't. Because I was weak. To be straight up honest, I was weak. Whereas I'm not weak now. But if I get too comfortable in believing I'm not weak, I become weak.
Right.
You know, same way with you're humble until you say you are.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you know, it's definitely worth a try. I mean, if you're in active alcoholism, what have you got to lose by attending an AA meeting?
Right. Yeah, and it's literally just an hour. It does not last an hour and a half or 2 hours. It does not last an hour and 15 minutes.
It's 1 hour.
It's not 30 minutes. It is literally 60 minutes that they start and stop and end on time. And so go in knowing that. Go in knowing that, hey, this is just an hour of my life. This is just an hour of my week, an hour of my night. And just go and see what they're talking about. And you will walk away with something that you didn't have prior. If you're just looking. If you're using and you still want to use, you should still go. You should still go. Now, I made a video about people making small little attempts to get help. And the only requirement for AA or Narcotics Anonymous or any recovery program is you've got a desire to stop. Yeah. No matter if that desire is just like this. I mean, that's probably how big it is. But and the desire to do everything else is like this. But if you have just a tinge of desire just to see what a meeting is like, absolutely go. And just go and maybe find you a spot in the back, and people will introduce themselves to you. And then they'll leave you alone too. You can participate in the discussion, or you can just listen. But it will be it's a good thing. You should absolutely go. If anybody's on the fence with going, Google it in your area and just go. If you're in our area and you want to go to one, we'll go with you. Because we enjoy it. They have meetings typically like 12 noon, 7 p.m., 7 days a week. And I think that's like the international standard. Even in other countries, they are set up all over the world for that.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember two conversations that stood out to me, the ones that I can remember from that first meeting, was one of our friends, and he was talking about, one of the guys who used to go to McDonald's with us all the time. And he was talking, and he was talking about how his life became so unmanageable that he was up to his ankles in beer cans around his sofa chair in his apartment or whatever. And he had the money to pay his bills because he had a decent job.
He just didn't do it.
He just didn't do it because he didn't care.
Yeah. And that's the reality. That's the reality.
Alcohol will take, that's good. He had a job and got help before he lost a lot of stuff. Alcohol will take away your from wherewithal. It will take away from just your absolutely common sense. Decisions that you would never make sober. Even if you're not drinking, you will make them because guess what? 2 words, brain damage. You have literally and scientifically damaged the neurotransmitters in your brain. And so, yeah,
Yeah, it's like
the elevator's not going to the top all the time. But when he
Nope.
shared that story, I was like, oh my God, I've done that too.
No, well, it's like I was sitting over here laughing after you said that because when you're talking about like it's done, it's done. There's no reasoning, there's no common sense there. It reminded me, right, and this was like during that bender I went on it was about a 6 month bender, I'd say, before I was hospitalized back in 2020 with a near death experience and all that got me sober to 3 years almost of sobriety in June. We were at a red light. I don't remember this. My wife told me this. We were at a red light, and she said it was at the red light where Chili's and
Okay.
Panera and CC's and all that is. She said it was a red light. She said I was hammered. Just hammered. I don't know why, because I don't remember for one. But even if I did remember, I still wouldn't know why. I put on Michael Jackson's song "Man in the Mirror." I get out of the car, out of the passenger seat, at a red light. And she tells me that I was trying to moonwalk around the car in a circle to Man in the Mirror at that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I could get it if it was Billie Jean, but it was Man in the Mirror. How do you moonwalk to that in the first place? Secondly, I was not even moonwalking. She said I was just walking backwards around the car.
It counts. It still counts.
She said she got out of the car completely humiliated and embarrassed. We laugh about it now.
Yeah.
Got me in the car. She jumps in the driver's seat, closes the doors. We go on down the road. And she said, I'm still doing this. Like I'm trying to moonwalk, sitting in the passenger seat with a stupid, goofy smile on my face. I didn't even remember this. Don't even know where I'm at. I mean, I woke up in someone's front lawn. Like just laying in their front lawn. I don't remember how I got there.
There are definitely some humorous stories with it, and some that are absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, there's some of those too.
But when he shared that story, and that's just a funny guy in general. He may be talking about something serious, and he just has just a funny aura about him.
Yeah,
but
even when he's got the angry expression.
Yeah, and he's just telling you something that's hilarious. But something about that story I really enjoyed hearing. And I'm okay, I'm like, so if this guy, and I just needed to connect with people that I related to.
Yeah.
And so that was the first one. I'm like, okay, I can kind of relate to what this guy's talking about. The second one, and then that's the only really conversation I remember that night was an older guy, maybe a guy in his 60s, somebody almost twice my age. And come to find out, this was he had stopped drinking for literally 30 days.
Yeah.
So it's very cool that when you go, you'll see people that they're coming in there on their first hour of sobriety.
Yeah.
And that was almost kind of me, just a day's worth of sobriety, and I need help from somebody. And then you've got guys that have been there for a couple months, a couple of years, people have been there sober for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
They all have a level of strength that you can gain from when you listen to them share.
Wisdom.
And this older dude was there for 30 days. And I was like, wow, this guy's been drinking. He really could keep going.
Oh, yeah.
He really can just keep going and probably just pass away drinking in the next 4 or 5 years or something.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, this older dude who could just kind of quit and ride it out is coming in here for help. So
Yeah.
I knew it had to be hard for him. And he said that in the morning, he used to wake up every morning before work and go to his freezer and grab a bottle of liquor from his freezer.
Yeah.
Alcoholics keep liquor in their freezer because it keeps it ice cold and it never freezes because it has alcohol in it.
When you take a shot of liquor, when you first buy it, then you put it in the freezer and you take it out and you pour another shot and you take that shot of it ice cold out of the freezer. It's almost syrupy. I hated that syrupy.
Oh, yeah.
I always hated the syrupy thing texture.
Okay.
So I always kept it at room temperature, so it's just harsh. I wanted it harsh on the
Oh,
throat.
okay. You needed it to burn.
I wanted it to burn.
Well, his story, and I thought about, man, how bad of an alcoholic do you got to be to get up in the morning and the first thing you do is hit the liquor first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, by God, I've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
Not every day, not every, but just absolutely 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 6 a.m. And I remember, and so I remember drinking liquor first thing in the morning, and sometimes from the freezer, just wherever. And the guy just talked about it. He's like, man, he says, I look forward to that, starting my day off with that buzz and getting started and not feeling or knowing where you are for the first couple hours of the day. Sadly enough, I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, I relate to that. I've done that too. And so those two stories, no one really came up and said, you need to stop drinking. We're your friends from Alcoholics Anonymous. No one ever pushed it. It was just the magic of these guys and girls telling their stories about this is what I deal with, this is what I did for help, and this is what's working for me. And that's the beauty of it. Something about that sharing, it does it for you. And then I was able to say, okay, well, this is my name's Michael. and apparently I'm an alcoholic, and this is where I'm at, and I need some help. And they delivered, and that was my first night, and I came back as much as possible. And that first night that you go, I have a couple of chips here. And so if you've not been to Alcoholics Anonymous or any type of recovery groups, I always use that as the example, but there are dozens of different addictions recovery groups. They usually have something called a chip system where you can pick up chips. And I know this sounds really weird, but it was one of the coolest things that I ever heard of. And it literally was one of the things that kept me coming back.
Yeah.
Is at the end of the meeting, they're going to have a different set of chips, red chips, yellow, there's a blue, there's a green. And this white one they start with this one and they say, is there anybody here that wants a white chip to start or restart your program, your own personal program of stopping whatever it is you're addicted to? And so that night, then they did a red chip. Red chip is for 30 days. How long is the blue chip? They've got
6
them
months.
They got them in order. When you do them in order, you can remember.
Blue is 6 months.
And then
Yellow is 9 months.
Yeah. So you got 1 month. 1 day, 1 hour, or restart the program.
Yeah.
30 days. They call it 30 days of nuts, and that your eyes are this red because you're doing everything in your power to not drink those first 30 days.
Yeah.
And then
it's green is 60. No, orange.
Maybe, and it says things are getting better.
It's been almost 3 years ago since I got them.
And I've got my other chips. They've been shuffled around, but I will never lose this white one.
Right.
And so now that gentleman that was there for 30 days, the old guy that was drinking liquor from his freezer first thing in the morning, he got his 30-day chip. And so this guy had just stopped drinking altogether. My God, which is hard to do when you're 65 years old. That's man. I mean, regardless of your age, but I really looked up to this old dude because he really has he's retired. He's not going to lose his job. He's retired. He's got social security.
And you got to think too.
He had a little place.
And you got to think too, when they're at that age, they're set in their ways. It's
dead set.
Yeah. So for him to lay it down and be like, yeah, I got to give that up. That's outstanding.
It was very inspiring to me. And so this guy got his 30-day chip. And so it's really pretty cool. Like, it sounds corny if you don't know what we're talking about, but it's a big deal because alcoholics, drug addicts, we are successful failures. We've failed at businesses, relationships, houses, apartments.
Anything that requires commitment, we've failed at.
We've got speeding tickets. We've had our license taken away, and not us, but fortunately we
Oh no, I did.
You did.
I had my license taken. It wasn't for DUI. The crazy thing is that when I actually got my license taken, I was known to drive drunk when I was 19 all the time. All the time. When I got my license taken from me, it's because I wrecked. And the crazy thing is, the first and only time I had totaled a car, I was airlifted and everything. I had not drank that day.
Wow.
I was jonesing for the drink. And I wrecked sober.
Wow.
I drove better when I was drinking back then than I did when I was sober. That's crazy. And that just goes to tell you how used and accustomed we become to everyday life, just being drunk. But yeah, they pulled my license. I didn't get my license back until 2019.
Yeah.
So I was 27 when I got my license back. So I've only had my license back for about 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah. But no, never had a DUI. Don't ask me how.
That's wild.
I'm not complaining.
So when I say we, I just mean just the alcoholics or addicts in general. We've lost a lot of stuff. We are not good at being successful at anything. And so whoever came up with this chip system, it's just so simple and yet so genius. And when you put something before somebody and you say, hey, if you stay sober for 30 days, I'm going to give you this chip that's made out of like the cheapest aluminum or bronze or tin or whatever this is.
Yeah.
This might as well be made out of gold.
Oh yeah.
To an addict who's never done anything right for 30 days in a long, long, long time. Well, this guy went up and got his 30-day chip because he hadn't had a drink in 30 days. And I thought, oh wow, that's my goal. I want to see if I can get. And when you go to a recovery meeting, you're probably not looking to stop for the rest of your life. You're trying to go there. Maybe the courts ordered you, your family's ordered you, your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend has said, if you don't get help, I'm leaving or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're kind of there thinking, I'm going to give this a shot for a few months or whatever, and then I'm going to get back to just drinking like I want to. So your attention span and your goal is just very, very, very short. And so mine was, I'm just trying to go this evening. You know, that night that I went, I'm like, can I go 3 hours and go to bed without going to get booze? And so when I seen him get his 30-day chip, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a really good shot at doing this because I absolutely needed to. And just seeing that tiny little goal before me, I'm like, if this old dude can do it, I think I got a good shot at doing it. And so that night I went up and got my white chip, which is to start or restart the program. This thing I had kept in those first 30 days. For me, I found some days that were extremely, extremely difficult. And I remember keeping this in my pocket, and no one knew that I carried around a white plastic chip in your pocket. But when those thoughts and those cravings to go drink, I would squeeze this.
Yeah.
I would squeeze it, and I would squeeze it pretty hard to where it would like get into my skin, and to where I'd like really, really feel it. And I'd just be like, and I would almost kind of like squeeze that into my hand until that thought just kind of went away for a second.
You know how I started to view these poker chips marking our time in sobriety? And this is recent. This dawned on me what these that mark sobriety mean to me. When you're in a poker game, all right, think about it. When you're in a poker game, the white chip is the ante-up chip, right? It's the first chip you put in. Usually, depending on the table you're playing at, everybody sets the rules different. The red can be your next valuable chip. Not always, it all depends, but either way, what is the whole purpose when you're laying chips on the table when you're gambling? It's to not lose it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose it.
Don't lose it.
Keep your sobriety. Keep your chips, keep your sobriety. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And you know, that came to me just here recently because, you know,
keep your chips.
We
I like that.
spent our whole time when we were drinking, gambling in every single situation of our life, even at the drink, because we didn't know if it was going to be our last drink or not. We could have died.
Yeah.
Now we're gambling and trying to keep our chips on our sobriety. That's how I view the chips.
Going back to the first meeting, and then we'll wrap it up shortly. Maybe not the first one that you talked about earlier, but you did get back into drugs and alcohol, and then you came to another point in your life where you were ready to put it all away and get help again. What do you remember from that meeting? Because that might have been like going to a meeting for probably the first time. Again.
Now, are you talking about in 2017?
Yeah.
Before I relapsed into it now,
Yep.
and then got sober for the almost 3 years in June now. 2017, what I remember was, you know, like I said, there was a face that I remembered. For me, I was completely broken, you know, when I went to my first actual meeting of wanting to get it right. I went in there in 2017 just shattered emotionally, spiritually. It was harsh, and I went in there on Valentine's Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of my wake-up call. Hey, happy Valentine's Day. You're alone. You know, and it wasn't even so much that I was alone, it's that I felt alone with even myself. You know, you can never truly be alone if you're okay with the person you're alone with, and that was my issue. So when I went in there, you know, I met my first official sponsor before I ended up with a sponsor that passed away recently. That was like a big brother, and you know, I remember him taking me out to eat. We shared the same liking. One of my favorite bands was one of his favorite bands. So we hit it off pretty quick because it's a band that not a whole lot of people know of. Is Typo Negative.
Okay.
And so we hit it off pretty well. And he was one of the guys that used to go to McDonald's with us. Yeah. Real awesome guy. You know, I went on to find another sponsor. Not at any fault of his. It was, you know, it was a mutual understanding that, you know, I had relapsed and that I needed to, you know, pursue maybe finding someone else who can, you know, help me in the avenue that maybe he didn't. When,
right.
honestly, the guy helped me tremendously.
And a sponsor is just another term for like an accountability partner.
Yeah. Someone to help you through the steps, someone to talk to when you need somebody to talk to. But yeah, you know.
From that meeting, did anything stand out to you that kind of hooked you back in that you can remember?
I was desperate at that time. Somewhere along the lines, I forgot about that desperation though, and I went back out.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, I was in such bad shape that I don't think I went to my first meeting in my sobriety as of 2020 until months later. I was bedridden for like 2-3 months. Even after I was released from the hospital, it took everything in me to get back up and start moving again. It almost killed me.
And for those that just joined this video or this series of videos, you were hospitalized because long story short, your body just shut down
Oh yeah.
from
Yeah.
from alcohol poison.
Acute pancreatitis. Then they found I had double pneumonia. They rushed me to ICU. By that time, it was acute pancreatitis, double pneumonia, and sepsis, which is basically blood infection, and urinating blood, no bowel movements, 4 IV bags running in each
Pretty
arm.
much a near-death experience. And
Oh, most definitely.
Some may say that you probably did pass away there for just a little bit, maybe. Had almost an out-of-body experience, and we'll just need to do that whole video all over again.
Oh, for
You know,
sure.
just with better sound and everything, because it is super powerful. But all right, man. Well, let's wrap it up here. It's been a good evening of sharing, and so I mean, just to wrap it all up, that's what you can expect from your first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, Narcotics Anonymous meeting, Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting,
Gamblers Anonymous.
Overeaters Anonymous meetings. These are meetings to help just normal people that have their life has become unmanageable by whatever addiction, fill in the blank. And addiction is no longer something people don't want to talk about.
Right.
My first few of these YouTube videos about alcohol and recovery, it's amazing the number of people that privately sent me a message and said, "Thank you for making these."
Yeah.
And there's, I guess, 100 YouTube channels on addicts and recovery and help. So this isn't the only show in town, and we're just one of hundreds of channels that are just trying to influence our circle,
Yeah.
our whatever this reaches, hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands. We have to share that space and the voice too. So it's going to
Yeah.
reach people that may not have access to those channels.
yeah.
But recovery and addiction is a huge subject now. It is no longer nothing really to be ashamed of anymore if you're reaching out for help. So I think that's a good thing. So, and you will need the help of people around you. So we're here for you.
Yeah.
Drop us a message anytime.
And here's the thing, time takes time. Don't expect you're going to get it overnight. Now, that's not a cop-out. That doesn't mean give up if, you relapse or whatever, which I hope you don't. But time takes time. You're not going to get a year of sobriety overnight. You're not going to get a year of wisdom of sobriety overnight. It's going to take a year. And it's going to take a year of the work. It's going to take a year of the footwork, whether it be in the program, whether it be in the Bible, whether it be in whatever religion you're in. It's going to take legwork. You can't just sit and ride and think it's going to work. I tried it. It didn't work. I relapsed. This time I came in desperate and willing to change and gain wisdom. Therefore I did. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take an absolute dedication. Actually will be the biggest dedication you're setting aside marriage that you'll probably ever make. So.
But it's definitely worth it.
It's definitely
We can
worth
do it. You can do it.
It's definitely
You'll
worth it.
be absolutely a better person for it. And it may even be a tad easier than what you think, maybe.
Oh yeah.
You get the right kind of help and just reach out.
And one thing it does that you will hear, and it is true, I didn't believe it either. It does get easier.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much easier now than it was
Absolutely, yeah.
6 months ago. Like 2 years ago. It's so much easier. So.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and stick around for more. We'll be doing some more videos to help and encourage people every chance we can. Thanks.